بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله الهاشمي القرشي وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اهتدى بهديه واستنى بسنته وتبع هداه إلى يوم الدين. تركنا المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. ثم ما بعد. So, alhamdulillah, we are conducting these four daily sessions during the week, 4 sessions per week, looking at the way of the Arifin. The journey is the destination. So we have begun by, in the text that we have selected by Abu Qasim Abdul Rahman al-Lajai, Qutb al-Arifin, or the pole of the knowers of God. So here, Qutb or pole, meaning that which is a guiding pole, like the North Star, looking to the sky, the celestial realm to guide one. And so the path, the journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is similar, that we have lofty aspirations, and when we look high, though we may not always live up to the loftiness of our aspirations, nonetheless, we try to reach that point as much as we can. So the author, as we've seen in the session so far, is looking at issues of aqidah or creed or theology. And I realize that for some this may seem a little bit tedious and not as interesting perhaps as the other things that we have done. We have covered in terms of suluk, in terms of wayfaring, in terms of improving one's relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and akhlaq and character and so forth. But really this is essential. How can you improve your relationship with Allah if you don't know Allah, if you don't know how to address Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you don't know what to think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you don't know what's inappropriate to postulate or think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So this is vital, it's important, and all of our teachers, generally speaking, they start with these points, and specifically knowing that which is incommensurate or inappropriate, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala transcends. So we have been looking at those things. I had promised last week to have kind of a chapter headings or topical kind of list of the things we'll be covering. I'm working on that, and hopefully I will have that prepared for the last session this week on Thursday. There's about 100 of them, and so far, some of them are only a few lines, and some of them a few pages. So it depends upon how far we get through it. But I think in terms of this particular first section that we're looking at, issues of aqidah, we'll need probably a couple more weeks to get through that. And I might summarize here and there, depending upon how I feel it's going. So last time we did talk about the negation of similarity between Allah and His creation. So basically, that's kind of the general theme. Allah is never going to be like His creation, and that would include, as we mentioned, taking up physical space, having a direction, and so forth. Some of these that we're going to look at today now is not so much about physicalities, except when we talk about makan, place, but also things that we should not ascribe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like dhulm is one of the things we'll look at. So oppression or wrongdoing. That's something that we can think about human beings, but certainly not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says in this particular section, Faslun, rahimahullah, fi nafi al-dhulmi wal-jawri an Allah subhanahu. So this is negation of dhulm wal-jawr. And these words are very, very similar. They're almost synonymous. I'm not sure if I can even, it's only difference in shades of meaning. Dhulm means to literally put something in the wrong place. So it's kind of the opposite of being just. And al-jawr kind of has the meaning of ta'addi, to go beyond bounds, right? To, if there's a balance, it's something, and then to exceed that in a negative way. So both of those things are impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How so? Well, he says, فَلَيْسَ فِي الْوُجُودِ مِنَ الْحَوَادِثِ إِلَّا خَلْقُ وَلَا مُلْكَ فِي الْوُجُودِ إِلَّا مُلْكُ وَلَا فَوْقَهُ غَيْرُهُ فَفِعْلُهُ مُتَصَرِّفٌ فِي مُلْكِهِ وحكمه ماض في خلقه لم يتصرف في ملك غيره فيتصف بالجور ولا يتعدى فيما ليس له فيتصف بالظلم والعدوان بل هو القاهر فوق الكل وهو رب الكل وهو بكل شيء عليم. So kind of like an intellectual argument here. He says there's nothing in existence that is an existent thing that has come into existence, يعني the hawadith, إلا خلقه, except that which Allah has created. In other words, anything that exists, Allah put it into existence. There's no exception to that. وَلَا مُلْكَ فِي الْوُجُودِ إِلَّا مُلْكُ, and then there's no sovereignty or kingdom or things to be possessed except they belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He's the one who puts them there. وَلَا فَوْقَهُ غَيْرُهُ, and there's no one above Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? There's no one Allah answers to. So it's all His. فَفِعْلُهُ مُتَصَرِّفٌ فِي مُلْكِهِ. So his fi'al, his act, which is, all acts go back to the act of God. مُتَصَرِّفٌ فِي مُلْكِهِ. So he is acting upon that which is his, right? Which he has sovereignty over, which he is the ruler over, which he is the Lord over. So like if, you come to possess something legally, like a book or a bookcase or a chair or a table or something like that, then it's yours. Technically, if you want to make firewood out of it, you can do that, but because you possessed it, you acquired it. So فَفِعْلُ مُتَصَرِّفٌ فِي مُلْكِهِ. So his deed, his act, he is the one who is acting upon that which belongs to him. وَحُكْمُهُ مَاضٍ فِي خَلْقِهِ. Right? And his ruling, his decree, is being enacted in his creation. لم يتصرف في ملك غيره فيتصف بالجور. He is not acting upon anyone else's dominion or sovereignty so that he can be described as jair or biljawr, right? As someone who has gone beyond their right upon something. That's the jawr. ولا يتعدى فيما ليس له فيتصف بالظلم والعدوان. Nor is he going exceeding his right upon something, because everything belongs to him. So he cannot be described as with dhulm or udwan, as aggression. Nothing that Allah does we can describe as aggression against His creation, nor can it be described as dhulm, right, as oppression. بل هو القاهر فوق الكل. Rather, He is the qahir. He is the one who compels and can overwhelm, and He is above all. وهو رب الكل, and He is the Lord of all. وهو بكل شيء عليم, and he is well acquainted with everything. So from a purely kind of basic premise sort of argument, it's impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be described, God to be described as aggressive or zalim or oppressive or anything like that, because He's only doing that which he owns, which He possesses, and He has every right to do that. Now, that being said, some people may say, well, then why did He create us to begin with? Did He create us so that He can enact upon His will in a cruel way? Is it cruelty, the things that we see today? Is it a cruel act of God? We would never say something like that. You may find that in other religious traditions, the idea Allah is acting cruelly or God is acting cruelly. Hasha. Either the way that He deals with creation, either it's by His justice, by His adl, or by His rahmah, by His mercy. And His justice is merciful, and His mercy is just. They're not like separate things, but He also has sifatil afu, right? He can take people to task, and that's called His justice for their transgressions, or He can choose to pardon them and to forgive them and to look the other way, as it were, and not take them to task. And that's also his right to do that. But we describe that as mercy. And where was it described when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dealing with us by what we deserve or entitled to, then we describe that as his adl, right, as his justice. So in none of those the two things is there anything called dhulm, is there anything called corruption or aggression or so forth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs us and tells us and guides us and shows us what is needed, what we do to avail ourselves of Allah's mercy, and what should we avoid so that we are not dealt with by Allah's justice, right? And you know, the refrain of many people today when they find injustice in the world, they say no justice, no peace, right? So if we were to kind of just assume a world that had no justice in it whatsoever, and there would be no reckoning and no one would be taken to task, that would not be a peaceful solution. Because as we can see, there's an intrinsic fitrah, there's an inherent state within us. We like to see justice being dispensed, right? If someone harms a loved one of yours or a family member, and then they go walk free, you feel inside of you that something is wrong and you're not, there's no peace for you. And so this is an inherent trait within humanity. And oftentimes our traits of humanity reflect in some way or form that which is in the divine realm. So just like we like to see justice being served, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, huwa al-hakam al-adl, right? He is the one al-hakam, he is the one who will judge, and he is the one who will judge al-adl, right? Most justly. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ وَمَا يَظْلِمُ اللَّهُ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ, right? Allah is not going to do dhulm, is not going to oppress his servants, and he will not oppress them even one iota, right? And this is what we know. And we know that in the next life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can choose to forgive. And then if he chooses to forgive, if that person who in this life did something really bad to you and you are presented with the opportunity to forgive them in the next life, and you will be presented that opportunity, or you're presented with the opportunity to take from their deeds and take your right, you'll have the choice to do that. Whichever way you go, you will be contented. And if you choose to take from that which is yours, which is owed to you, then you're perfectly right to do that. And it will be much more difficult to do this in the next life than in this life. In the next life, يوم يفر المرء من أخيه وأمه وأبيه وصاحبه وبنيه لكل امرئ شأن يغنيه. People run away from their mothers and their fathers and their friends and their spouses. Everyone will have a sha'an yughni. Everyone will be busy with themselves. So if you can imagine that if I can just get a few of this person's good deeds who wronged me in this life, and then I could, get a hand up, as it were, a leg up to go to paradise and not be entered into hellfire, who would forsake that opportunity? Your own mother is going to do that to you. That's what the Quran says. But in this life, we are also presented with that opportunity, but it's different. Here, when you do afu, right, when you pardon someone, then that will actually weigh heavier in your scales in the next life than if you were to take your right, and you have every right to do that. That's why Allah says in the Quran, وَأَن تَعْفُوا أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. And to pardon is closer to taqwa. And so that which is closer to taqwa is going to weigh more heavily in the scale of deeds. But in the next life, there is no dhulm, there is no jawr, right? In an absolute sense. So there's no wrongdoing, there's no oppression. In absolute sense, justice will be perfectly served in the next life. And in this life, we say, yes, there is dhulm, right? And Allah describes al-zalimun, right? Wal-kafirun, wal-fasiqun. These are descriptions. So from the qualified, limited perspective of human interaction, yes, there is dhulm, there is oppression, and there is corruption. But we don't attribute that oppression and corruption that people do with one another to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though from an ontological perspective, from al-haq wal-waqa wal-haqiqa, all those things, Allah is the author of all. So the adab with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to affiliate all that is good with him, even the things in this life, and then all that is bad, affiliate it to shaitan, affiliate to yourself, affiliate to anything else. But overall, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the author of all of this. So nothing that we can see from an inward divine perspective is going to be described as dhulm, right? So if, let's say I go to work and then I get my pink slip and I get fired, do I say inside of me, Allah zalamani? Did I say that Allah has wronged me here? La hasha. I could say the shirka, I could say the place I work for, and maybe I have actually a valid case, a legal case that they fired me without cause, and maybe it was a case of discrimination or something like that, and we can speak in those, those tones and say that, but we don't ascribe that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the inward haqiqah, from the basis of what is the haqq. No, it was not an act of aggression from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, act of oppression. And this is what Ahlullah, or the people who are the Arifun, that's how they look at things. So they may take the thing to court, and they may charge discrimination, but inwardly they know the haqiqah, right? The reality is there was no dhulm in Allah making that happen to you. So in as much as we ascribe it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He didn't wrong me. And there may be a benefit. In fact, definitely there is going to be a benefit, right? If you patiently persevere through that particular tribulation, then you come out on the other end a much different believer than you were on the beginning end. And if that's what comes out of it, then actually what Allah gave to you was a gift. And this is what Ibn Ata al-Sakandari means in some of the hikam, that you don't really know Allah until you see that deprivation is in fact ata, it's in fact a blessing. So what people may describe as deprivation as al-mana', but you see it as ayn al-ata, as the epitome of ata, of grace, even though others see it as deprivation, then this is the path of the Arifin that we were referring to, because now your spiritual state is congruent. It's right. It's in agreement with the haqiqah, and the haqiqah, the reality is that Allah, laysa bidhallamin al-abid. Allah does not wrong anyone. This does not preclude us, however, as I mentioned earlier, from seeking to get our terrestrial rights, for lack of a better word. I get wronged at work, or policeman gave me a speeding ticket and I wasn't speeding and I want to fight that. It's all fine. But at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of all of your affairs, and He is the author of everything. So you kind of have this parallel relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though at the same time you are contending with the outward shari'i aspects, outward sharia issues of stopping oppression and stopping injustice and doing what's right and so forth. Wallahu a'lam, and I hope that made some sense. So the next section, he says, فَصْلٌ فِي نَفْيِ الشَّرِيكِ عَنِ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ. So this, most of us already know it, which is the negation that Allah can have a partner. فالله سبحانه ليس معه ثان في ملكه ولا له شريك في أمره بل هو واحد فرد صمد وليس بعدم الخلائق كان واحدا على الإطلاق ولكن بثبوت القدرة له والغلبة والقهر والعظمة والجلال والخلق والأمر كان واحدا على الإطلاق. So he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, ليس معه ثان. He doesn't have a second in His dominion, His mulk. There's no one else. يتصرف في ملكه. No one else has the power to enact change or to do anything or to make anything happen within the mulk, His dominion. ولا له شريك في أمره. Right? He doesn't have a partner when He issues commands. No one else is kind of telling Him what to do or anything like that. بل هو واحد فرد صمد. Right? He is one, He is a fard, He is unique, He is a samad, He is epitome in terms of oneness. وليس بعدم الخلائق كان واحدا على الإطلاق. ولكن بثبوت القدرة له والغلبة والقهر والعظمة والجلال والخلق والأمر كان واحد على الإطلاق. So here he's saying, before Allah created all of the khalaiq, before he created all of the creation, he was one, right? There was actually nothing else. كان الله ولا شيء غيره. There was Allah and there was nothing else. So is that what makes him one and unique? No, he's very astutely saying, no, that's not what makes him unqualifyingly one. ولكن بثبوت القدرة له. But rather by the attributes we ascribe to him, al-qudra, his omnipotence, wal-ghalaba, and his power, wal-qahr, and overwhelming, wal-azama, wal-jalal, his magnificence, all of these things, lahu al-khalq wal-amr, right? He is the one who creates, he is the one who issues commands. This is what makes him one unqualifyingly, right? على الإطلاق. وهو مستمر الوجود, right? And he is forever existing, مستمر الوجود. فإن من ثبت قدمه استحال عدمه فلم يحتج إلى الشريك فإن الشريك لا يخلو من وجهين إما يكون غيرا أو يكون ليس بغير فإن كان الشريك خارجا عن الغيرية فمحال في العقل والمحال ما لا يمكن كونه وما لا يمكن كونه فقطع الكلام عنه أولى وإن كان الشريك غيرا فالغيرية على ضربين غيرية مستقلة وغيرة غير مستقلة. Again, sounds philosophical, and it is a little bit, but as we said in the previous session, sometimes to describe something that's quite simple to grasp, you need many, many words in order to dispel the misconceptions that can be raised up about it. So he says, whoever is qadim and thabata qidamahu, and we talk about this word qadim and qidam. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always existed from a time that was without beginning. That's what it means to be qadim. Istihala adamu. Then it's impossible logically, conceptually, ontologically for him to not exist. So if you always existed, then you have to always exist. And there's never going to come a point in time in the future where you stop existing. فَلَمْ يَحْتَجْ إِلَى الشَّرِيكِ. So he doesn't need a partner. Why? Because the partner is one of two things. إما أن يكون غيرا أو يكون ليس بغير. And this sounds very, very intuitive, but the reason he's saying this is because there are actually people who disputed this at one point in time. So he said the partner can either be something other than the thing, or it could be the same thing. And if you look to some other religious traditions, perhaps, in the doctrine of the Trinity, this is kind of how it's explained, that the Trinity is not something other than God, but it is God at the same time, but yet they're partners. So here he's saying, إِمَّا أَن يَكُونَ غَيْرًا أَوْ يَكُونَ لَيْسَ بِغَيْرٍ. Either it's something that is one and the same as the thing itself, that partner, or it's not one and the same. So he says, فَإِن كَانَ الشِّرْكُ خَارِجًا عَنْ الْغَيْرَةِ فَمُحَالٌ فِي الْعَقْلِ. That's it. If this partner is not something other than the thing itself, فَمُحَالٌ فِي الْعَقْلِ, then it's inconceivable, right, that can even happen. We can't be two things and one thing at the same time. You are you and I am me. So I can't be myself and my partner at the same time. So this is what he says, خَارِجًا عَنِ الْغَيْرِيَّةِ, right? Al-ghayr means to be distinguishable, distinct. So this is inconceivable. وَالْمُحَالُ لَا يُمْكِنُ كَوْنُهُ, and that which we say is inconceivably can never be. وَلَا مَا يُمْكِنُ كَوْنُهُ فَقَطْعُ الْكَلَامِ عَنْهُ أَوْلَى. And that which can never be, it's better not just to talk about it because it's a waste of time to begin with. وَإِنْ كَانَ الشَّرِيكُ غَيْرًا, but if the partner is something or someone distinct from the thing itself, فَالْغَيْرِيَّةُ عَلَى ضَرْبَيْنِ, then it's going to be one of two types. غَيْرِيَّةٌ مُسْتَقِلَّةٌ وَغَيْرَةٌ غَيْرُ مُسْتَقِلَّةٌ. Either it's going to be a independent type of otherness, so the ghayr means it's other than that thing, or it's going to be a dependent or non-independent type of otherness. فإن كان غير مستقل فهو محدث وإن كان غيرية مستقلة فلا تخلو من وجوه. So let's look at the first part. فما كان غير مستقل فهو محدث. So that which is not independent, right? So dependent, فهو محدث, then necessarily this has to be something that is محدث, right? That came into existence. Because if you're dependent upon something else for your existence, then that means that thing that you're dependent upon, that's what brought you into existence. What do we call that? That's called huduth. That's called being a created thing, right? A ka'in, something brought you into existence. So that's the one who's non-independent. When kana ghayriyatan mustaqilla, but if it's an independent otherness, فلا تخلو من وجوه, then it's going to be a couple of different forms here. One, إما أن تكون مجانسة أو متلاصقة أو متباينة أو متجاورة أو متقابلة. فإن تعلق بالغيرية شيء مما ذكرنا فقد تعلق به الحدوث. So this غيرية, either it's going to be متجانسة أو متلاصقة. And these words are very similar. So either it's going to be something that is like mutajanis or mutalasiq. Mutalasiq means like not physically independent from it. So mutalasiq means sticking to something. Mutajanis means almost sitting next to one another, proximity, but not sticking next to one, not touching. So the mutalasiq is touching. The mutajanis is not touching, but close. أو متباينة أو متجاورة أو متقابلة. Right? Mutajawira means close by, but some other distance. Mutaqabila, facing one another. So all of these things, what they have in common is that they're physical proximities, physical ways of describing proximity or otherness. So he says here, فإن تعلق بالغيرية شيء مما ذكرنا فقد تعلق به الحدوث. If this otherness then is dependent upon one of these things, then it's definitely a created thing, because only created things have physical ways we can describe their proximity or their otherness. So that means it's hadith, that means it's not God. ومن تعلق به الحدوث فهو مخلوق غير مستقل, as we said. So anything that has this sifa of huduth, this attribute of coming into existence, right, of change, of mutability, then that's necessarily something created and then hence not independent, no independent existence. والغيرية لا تنفك عن هذه العلل أصلا. والله عز وجل لا يكون مغايرا لذاته ولا لشيء من صفاته يتعالى عن ذلك علوا كبيرا. So all of these ilal, all of these what we can describe as shortcomings, if we're thinking that true and most complete existence is that of God, which is never ending and which is independent of anything else, then all of these things don't apply. والله عز وجل لا يكون مغايرا لذاته. Allah is not distinct from his essence, right? We understand Allah by his essence. ولا لشيء من صفاته, or to anything of his attributes. So he's not distinct from his attributes like they're separate from him. They are how we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يتعالى عن ذلك علوا كبيرا, right? Allah يعني يتعالى يعني هذا كلمة تنزيه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is utterly, beyond any of those things that we're talking about. فإذا علمت بضرورة عقلك تشقيق ما ذكرت لك استقام لك قطعا أن تقول لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. So if you've understood بضرورة عقلك, right? We talked about this word before. ضرورة العقل or العلم الضروري. If you necessarily know, in other words, you cannot conceive of any other scenario at all. This is what we call العلم الضروري or ضرورة عقلك. There's no other conception that's possible. So if you got to that point, from what I've described to you, what I've recalled to you so far, استقام لك قطعا, then you know with absolute certainty to say لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. Then you say لا, there's no deity worthy of worship except Allah, and he has no partner. ولو كان معه غيره سالما مما ذكرنا من علل الغيرية لكان إلهين. And then he brings one more objection you could bring. What if you say, well, okay, I don't believe any of those other things, and there are actually two gods? So he says, well, كان معه غيره سالما مما ذكرنا. So if there was another one with him, with God, and سالما مما ذكرنا, يعني, and none of the things we described before apply, من علل الغيرية, from the shortcomings of otherness, لكان إلهين, then it would have been two gods. ولو كان إلهين لعلى بعضهما على بعض وانفسخ شأن الربوبية وتعطل أمر الألوهية بل هو الله واحد كما قال عز وجل لا تتخذوا إلهين اثنين إنما هو إله واحد فإياي فارهبون. So if it was two gods, لَعَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ, and this is from the Quran. This is directly from the Quran. Then one of them would have overpowered the other. وَانْفَسَخَ شَأْنُ الرُّبُوبِيَّةِ. So if one of them overpowers the other, one of them is more capable than the other, then the second one is not a god. Right? In فَسَخَ شَأْنُ الرُّبُوبِيَّةِ. There's no more sovereignty, there's no more rububiyyah, there's no more lordship. If one عَلَى عَلَى الثاني, if one overpowers the other or is more powerful than the other. وَتَعَطَّلَ أَمْرُ الْأُلُوهِيَّةِ. Right? And then the idea of divinity is gone because only one of them could be divine. The other one is something less than that. بل هو الله واحد كما قال عز وجل. Rather, he is one, as Allah said, لا تتخذوا إلهين اثنين إنما هو إله واحد. Do not take two gods. إنما هو إله واحد. Rather, he is only one. فإياي فارهبون. And so to me, that you should have this rahbah, or this reverence and fear mixed with reverence. فإياي, only from Allah. So this is تقديم ما حق التأخير. فإياي فارهبون. So only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should you have this rahbah, right? Should you consider to put in this high pedestal of complete reverence and تنزيه عن جميع النواقص, right? And to be completely free from any sort of illah, any sort of shortcoming. So I just want to do this one last thing that we talked about makan already, because after that we're going to go right into the what we call the positive theology, which would be, okay, we know what Allah is not, then we have to know what He is. So this here in this next section, I'm just going to summarize it. He says, فَصْلٌ فِي نَفْيِ الْمَكَانِ عَنِ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ. So this is negating that Allah has a place. And he spends like a page and a half on this, about a page, because this is the one that causes a lot of trouble, because there seem to be verses in the Quran that indicate otherwise. And we said already that any verses in the Quran that seem to indicate otherwise, which we know to be conceptually impossible. So the Quran is speaking to the human intellect. And so the Quran will never ask us to accept something that is irrational, that is completely contrary to the human intellect. Right? It's not going to tell us up is down and down is up, or 1 + 1 = 3, or that Allah can be contained within the very thing that He created. It's kind of the same thing. So, فالله, he says, عز وجل, لا يحتاج إلى المكان وكل من كان في مكان فهو محتاج إليه. Allah can't be in a place, because anyone who needs a place, right? I can't think of myself, and I can't think of the table, I can't think of the book, except it's occupying space. It's in a place, right? It has to be somewhere. There's no other way you can conceive it, right? And that means it needs to have a place. In other words, for you to actually conceive of it. I do not need to put Allah in a place to conceive of Him. That's the whole thing. Because if I did that, then He would be needy of something. وَاللَّهُ غَنِيٌّ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Right? Allah is not in need of anything, of any of the realms He Himself has created. So how can I say He's in the sky, or He's sitting on the throne, or anything like that? All of these things are to be understood in a manner that's commensurate with the majesty of God, right? So all of them, Mufassirun al-Mu'tabarun, right, of Ahl Sunnah, they said, read the verse as it has come, مَا نَفْيِ الظَّاهِرِ, right, with negating the literal meaning, right, that has, and literal meaning here means one that can be understood in a physical sense. One that can be understood in the physical sense. So, Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, Allah somehow, this istiwa ala al-Arsh, what does that mean? Like Imam Malik said, when someone came and asked him about it, he said, al-istiwa ma'loom. We know what the word istiwa in language means. It means to be established upon something or rest upon something. We know what that means. Wal-kayfiyya ghayru ma'qul is what he said in one of the narrations, the stronger one. And the modality of it is inconceivable. Al-kayfiyya means like how does that work with the arsh, even though it's so grand and big, but we don't know what it looks like, but it's a created thing. So how does that relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He said the modality of it غير معقول. So it's not an aqli issue, how it is. We cannot conceptualize the relationship between the two, but there is thubut al-alaqa, right? Definitely we say there is a relationship somehow, right? And it could be one that is based upon majaz, as they said, based upon metaphor, or it can be based upon something in a way that we can't even comprehend. It could be sir min al-asrar, al-Quran, which there are many. It could be from amongst the secrets of the Quran. Abu Bakr Siddiq said every holy book, every sacred scripture has secrets, right? And the Quran itself talks about al-ayat al-mutashabihat. The ayat muhkamat wa ukhra mutashabihat. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ ابْتِغَاءَ الْفِتْنَةِ وَابْتِغَاءَ تَأْوِيلِهِ وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّا بِهِ كُلٌّ مِنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّنَا. So there are ayat muhkamat, there are commanding verses that are clear in their meaning, unambiguous. وَأُخْرَى مُتَشَابِهَات, and there are others mutashabihat. In other words, we can't really tell ambiguous what they actually mean. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ, the ones who have zayg in their heart, they have some sort of sickness, malady, spiritual malady in their heart. فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ ابْتِغَاءَ الْفِتْنَةِ وَابْتِغَاءَ تَأْوِيلِهِ. So they will follow that zayg, right? They will follow that sickness in their heart in a way to try to cause fitna, right? Looking for fitna, or looking for to understand it in a way that satisfies their sickness. That ta'wil that satisfies their sickness. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. And no one knows the ta'wil, what it actually means, إِلَّا اللَّهُ. Now here they said, if I stop at إِلَّا اللَّهُ, at lafz al-jalala, that means only Allah knows. Some of the mufassirun said, وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ مَعْطُوف على لفظ الجلالة. So the ones who know in that second interpretation are Allah and الرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, right? The rasikh is the one who is well established in knowledge. The one who's well established in knowledge. Wallahu a'lam, my understanding from this is this rasikh fil ilm means al-arif billah, al-alimun, right? The ones, not book knowledge, not discursive knowledge, right? Not something they read in a book and then they know what it means, but to truly know what it means, it's a gift Allah puts in people's hearts. So it's a type of spiritual knowledge. It's ilm ladunni, right? Ilm wahbi. It's knowledge that Allah gives to the hearts, not something that you can learn, but it's something that is given to you. If we go by that second interpretation. So, nafi al-makan, Allah cannot be contained in something that He created. وَاللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ كَانَ فِي الْأَزَلِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَخْلُقَ الْمَكَانِ. As we said, Allah, before He created everything, He was in this place called al-azal, which is not a place, but it's amr i'tibari, right? It's something that we use that word to try to at least describe or have a conception of what was there before there was nothing there. And what was there before there was nothing there was only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. بل قبل أن يخلق العالم بأسره منفردا ليس معه غيره بلا مكان ولا تشبيه ولا تكييف ثم أحدث الحوادث وصنع الصناعة وخلق العرش والثرى وما بينهم من السماوات والأرض وأصناف الموجودات التي لا تنحصر فقدر عليهم الموت والفناء والوجود بعد العدم والعدم بعد الوجود والزيادة والاعتدال والنقصان والتغيير والانتقال والحركة والسكون والتقديم والتأخير والبعث بعد الموت والوقوف بعرصة القيامة والخلود في الدارين. So He did all these things, right? Before even He خلق الخلق, He knew He was going to do all these things, which, I'm trying to summarize just in the interest of time, but He was there before all of this was, and then He created the heavens and the earth and all of the creatures that were going to occupy the heavens and the earth. And then He created for them death and extinction, because that's the attribute of things that are brought into existence, and to have existence after non-existence, because they weren't there. وَالْعَدَمْ بَعْدَ الْوُجُودِ, right? And then non-existence once again after existence. And then there's ziyada and i'tidal, right? And then there's increase, and there's balance, and then there's nuqsan, right? Then there's decrease, with taghyir, then there's change, and there's intiqal, then they go back to where you're going to go in the grave. Or haraka was sukun, right? And movement and stillness and so forth. So all of these things, right, that are sifat al-hawadith, that are attributes and properties of created things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala huwa alladhi qaddar. He is the one who made all of that. So before all of that was there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was completely independent of all of those things. So all of those properties, attributes, created things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is completely independent. So فهو كما كان في الأزل بلا مكان هو الآن على ما عليه كان. And this is actually one of the hikam. And even though this person lived before Ibn Ata secondary. So he is, as he was in this place called Al-Azal that we use just conceptually to talk about, without a place, without a makan, without a place. وهو الآن على ما عليه كان. And he is now as he was then. Right? So just like he didn't need a place before he created places, he still doesn't need a place, and that means he's not going to be occupying a place just in the same way, because Allah is immutable, unchangeable, right? There's no intiqal, right, as we have. There's no movement from stillness to movement and movement back to stillness and so forth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is grander and a'zam than that he needs a place. And he is self-sufficient and he doesn't need anything that he created himself. وَلَيْسَ فِي الْوُجُودِ إِلَّا مُحْدَثٌ وَقَدِيمٌ لَا ثَالِثَ لَهُمَا. Right, so there's only in existence qadim and muhdath. So qadim is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who is beginningless eternally, beginningless and everlasting in an eternal sense. And then everything else. And so the qadim then cannot occupy within the hadith, the muhdath. How is that possible? Because one is al-fana. One is going to die or at least be extinct and non-existent. So how can you say that Allah is contained within something that is going to be non-existent? That means in reality it is non-existent, right? Because it's only existing by Allah's existence. So how can you be inside that thing or be contained within that thing? Impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think that's sufficient. He goes into other things and that we already talked about. So I will stop here.